Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds on the Boom Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today we are talking about the Shannon Sharpe case, doing some updates to kind of let you know where I am. I want to say it's unfortunate. A lot of people do, but at the same time, I don't. Yeah, that is dismissive, and I know that people either blatantly or subconsciously they dismiss any victims based on how they feel about the person. Now, a lot of times the only conversations we have, we're not talking about the manager at IKEA. It only comes up when it's celebrities, and most of the time people have strong affiliation and affinity towards that celebrity, so people say it's unfortunate. I want to believe it, and I get it. If you are a fan or a friend of Shannon Sharpe, it is unfortunate. You don't want to believe it, and I think that's fair to say. But for me, I kind of hesitate because I don't like, if that's what you did, it's not unfortunate or any of that. That's just what you did. So anyway, hopefully if you listen to this, you listen to my first discussion about it, so you already know how we rolling, and then we're gonna jump into the updates so that we don't spend too much time on it. But I tried my best to kind of look around to see what's happening in terms of like real deal evidence. And as I mentioned before, you had Shannon come out, say that he's going to fight this. I think a new update, if I believe, what I didn't talk about last time is Shannon is stepping down from ESPN duties at the moment. I saw a lot of discussion about how he posted. So he did, well, I guess he didn't do a video. He announced it by posting like a text blurb, and people are like, man, you just screenshotted that somebody else sent to you. And everybody's making fun of him because it was like, you weren't supposed to screenshot it, you supposed to copy and paste, blah blah blah. Look, that's again, and this is part of the nuance that is uncomfortable. If you really know Shannon and Club Shay Shay and Nightcap and all that, not just jumping on the jump on, you would know that this is par for the course. Not only with Shannon, but also with anybody with celebrities. They got a team. They're not just talking. And so, but with Shannon, this is very par for the course. So as he did his little video, kind of trying to get ahead of the video clip, and he was saying he was innocent, he's gonna fight. I'm like, he's clearly reading, very clearly reading from a prepared statement. And that's what happens in TV. People read off prompters and all that. That's what happens. But I'm like, this is not him speaking from the heart. He's reading a prepared statement, and then he copy and post a prepared statement. So now a lot of people, or he ain't copy and post, he screenshot and a prepared statement. A lot of people are talking about that. Again, this whole discussion is in terms of my thoughts on guilty, innocent, in terms of what the accusations are. The accusations are, and I have to update, because what I meant to say is, what's the highest accusation? That's obviously how it works in court. So the highest accusation is rape, but on top of that, we're talking about assault, battery, manipulation. All those different things are part of the lawsuit. But when I'm speaking, we're talking about the highest level of accusation. And so the highest level of accusation is sexual assault and rape. And so in terms of this, him using, first of all, stepping down from ESPN and then using prepared statements, it doesn't shift me a whole lot. Now, him stepping down from ESPN, I'm shocked didn't happen earlier. this is me purely speculating. This the drama and messiness of it. I'll acknowledge that. I believe that they gave him the option, as they tend to do. It wasn't like he wasn't gonna be blindsided by an announcement. It was kind of like, hey, you can resign or we can fire you. Those type situations. So you can let people know you stepping down while this works out, or we can tell you that you stepping down. And so he decided to step down. Again, in terms of admission to guilt and all that, not a huge thing, but that is an update that happened. Now, one thing, and really the only thing I really want to talk about that I saw, is new text messages. As I mentioned in the comments, and let me say this again out loud, Shannon and his team deciding to release Gabby's name and to release the text is very dirty pool. So I would say that we're not, we're not saying that you can't release the text again to shape a narrative, because both sides are shaping the narrative. But they deliberately released the name of somebody who filed anonymously. And when we're talking about sexual assault victims and all that, that is very dirty pool. I mean, again, people could think what they want and all that, but that's just the case. It's dirty pool because you are outing someone that doesn't want to be outed, not only because of the scrutiny, but we know what it means in today's age to have that stuff on the internet. Not only, people can look in your business, and that, I always say that's fine. You want privacy, but you put it out there, people can find your business. What we don't want is people who are unstable but also have access to mess around and find your address and post it, or mess around and find where you work at or where you go to the gym at and try to pull up on you. It's that type of fanatic world we live in where that's dangerous. And wrong or right, we shouldn't have the discussion of the situation swayed by somebody being attacked. That's exactly what we saw in every one of these cases. When people know who it is, they feel they are a fan of Shannon, they don't believe it, they're not going to listen to anything, they're going to attack that person, whether it be a barrage of digital text, whether it be a digital campaign, or they physically show up. And witness intimidation is not new. Is different with the internet, but it's not new. We've seen that in many a time. So that was dirty pool. But anyway, Gabby's team has retaliated with some text and audio. And the audio I'm not going to really get into too much, because I will say, like, the idea of choking and all that, yes. I talked about the kink community, BDSM, all that, which is not really as taboo as people are making it seem. Like, I think the mainstream people will be like, oh my God, y'all into some freaky stuff. But we have a giant young generation that is completely into and researched and found all this stuff. We got a generation above them. It's just what it is. They're into that stuff, and it's not as taboo as it used to be. But even still, people who don't understand will try to use that to say that something bad, or that you can't blame anybody for something bad happening. And I can tell you that's not how it is. I've talked about this subject many times, and then we've seen it play out. Like, just because you're into any specific thing, and as I said last time, that doesn't mean that is no rules. There's always rules. And look, you might find somebody, because people are people. I don't know a good way to say this, but there's people in all types of states of mind. It ain't always people with full-time jobs. It ain't always people, that are coherent. It's people that are doing things and they are completely addicted to substances or other things, and they're making their decisions. And there's laws in different states and how that all works out. But in the general sense, somebody that is partaking in this type of lifestyle and sexual lifestyle, it is still the exact same as a regular lifestyle. There's a code of what is okay and what's not. It's a discussion, it's a dialogue, and no means no. And that leads me to the newest evidence. These texts were released. I don't even know if they released. I feel like TMZ found them, but it was part of the evidence. These texts showed that Gabby told Shannon, I've been crying because I asked you to use a condom. I told you not to do anal penetration, and you still did it. No matter what our history is, no means no. Now, texts for me, as I talked about before in terms of evidence, texts for me are huge. Because in the audio, look, we can have a phone conversation. You can note the time and date and be like, I had this conversation, okay? Then you can, if you're recording, you can upload that audio. You can do all types of AI and editing and sound effects. You could do whatever you want to it. Put it out and be like, check the phone records. We had this conversation at this time. And the phone records will say you had that conversation at that time. Now, I don't know, but from what I assume, most of these places are not recording your conversation without your permission. But when it comes to text, you said that. And every phone company can verify. It came from this phone at this time. This came from that phone at that time. So if somebody tells you, again, with no lawsuit, with nothing in hand, hey, you did this to me, that's not okay. And whether you reply or not, that shows a certain level of truth. Now, if you reply and be like, yeah, you're right, I messed up, I'm sorry, obviously that's you red-handed. Now, Shannon didn't do that. Shannon had some level of, or whoever had his phone, somebody had some level of awareness, said, hey, can I call you later? And so we don't have a text saying, yeah, you're right, or any of that. But it wasn't a denial. It wasn't like, what are you talking about? Clearly, from the text, there's an understanding that what she's saying is true. And so, again, people might say, oh, somebody might have your phone. That's a whole different look, if somebody texts me something wild or even something normal, and somebody had my phone and responded and they was like, yo, what? I would say somebody had my phone. Now, you might have said that in a conversation, cool, but still. But anyway, it wasn't about a text. It was about a physical act, so she knew it was him. He didn't deny it. That text is verified. You can verify these texts. Just like I said with the back and forth with the legals, oh, y'all can watch tape. They never said we could watch the tape. Bro, if we put in an email, we put in text, that's easy to verify. Texts are easy to verify. Verified, she told this man, you didn't use a condom and you did anal penetration. I told you I didn't want that. And no means no. It doesn't matter what our history is. It doesn't matter what type of stuff we do. Shannon's side so far has been all about this is consensual, it's kinky, it's rough. So the stuff you hear is out of context. And that might be true, but as I said last time, it doesn't mean that you didn't cross the line. You could be married, you could be dating, you could be kinky, you could be vanilla. It don't matter. When no means no. So I'm going to be honest with you. Again, looking at the highest level of rape and everything, I'm not 100%, but I am fully 60% Gabby, 40% Shannon right now, because text is text, bro. And be like, at the end of the day, even if this was the worst of it, that's sexual assault. I know y'all don't like to hear it, but as I said, I got a ton of training with this. That's sexual assault. No means no. Condom, even honestly in court, condom, that matters too, but to penetrate somebody in a way they did not want you to, that's sexual assault. End of story. And to be honest, that can be considered rape depending on where you are and what type of court. So, man, I honestly changed my mind. I might be 70% Gabby, 30% Shannon. And as I said, people want to say she's an OnlyFans, she was into this kink and all that. And to be honest, the text release, I couldn't see, but it looks like even after that conversation, she still wanted to do some stuff. So, look, at the end of the day, if you mess with somebody, let's say, again, 2 times a week, and we getting it in for a couple months, so we done got 20 plus in. At any point they like, this is not comfortable, okay, and you continue, that's sexual assault. And then if they say, hey, I want to hook up after, the next day they like, yeah, I still want to get into it, it's still sexual assault. Now, I know it's an uncomfortable thing, and even if as I say it, I feel uncomfortable, but it's true. Like, even if the person wants to continue, it's sexual assault. Now, a whole discussion on timelines and all that, sure, that could be had, but as it stands, you can be like, hey, 3 weeks ago, you text me, said you was uncomfortable, said I didn't like how you did this, even though I told you no. No means no, but I'm horny, I still want to hook up. That doesn't negate the fact that what you did. So it's a tough situation, but man, it's looking bad for Shannon. That's all I can say. All right, go down comment section, let me know what you think, share it around, get the conversation started, thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for going out of bounds.